Now, let's continue with our series of conversations with members of the Galway Chamber. And I want to go back indeed to Kenny Deery, who's the Chief Executive of Galway Chamber. And we've been doing these slots for a long number of weeks indeed, but today is the final one for 2020. And Kenny joins me on line one today. Kenny, it's been a busy couple of months for you.
It certainly has. Good morning, Keith. I think for everyone, no matter where you are in the business community, it's been really busy. And even listening to your programme, listening to Mark and Branner, they've had to totally reinvent how they do their work. You know, you've got drive-in bingos in Clonbur. Everybody's innovating and being busy in terms of trying to adjust and survive in this in what has been a most spectacular year. I think there'll be so many books written on 2020 as we will never forget it. But thank you, Keith, for facilitating these sessions, because I think it's really important. Lots of organisations individually and indeed ourselves in Chamber have been doing a lot of work, and it's great to be able to talk about it in a very progressive way. I think one of the bits that I've learned, and about 14, 15 months in this job now, is there are many great individuals and organisations who, even despite everything that's been going on with COVID, have a lot of ambitious plans for the future and are trying to move the dial and get delivery on those. And I think if there's one thing we've learned from this year, it's by working together we can be much stronger. And I think certainly with the way that we have repositioned in Galway Chamber with our new strategy, focusing on 5 areas of growth, and there's a different committee chair and there's a different group working on that and bringing all the organisations together, Keith, so that we have a coherence in messaging from Galway. And I think if there's anything that and I know my Chamber Council have a satisfaction in what has happened over the last couple of months, it's really getting a sense of the good work that's happening around town and how we can actually aggregate and bring that together now to work with the 2 local authorities, to work with the North West Regional Assembly, the Western Development Commission and others, so that we do truly develop the city to be a city for the future. And, you know, there's been a lot of, I suppose we forget in many ways, and it has been a tough year for so many in different aspects of business. But there's been a lot of good news this year as well that I suppose has got lost. If we look at, you know, high value jobs coming to Galway, you have the likes of Diligent, Globalisation Partners, Triggerfish. They're all really positive announcements. You know, you've got the likes of Genesis and SOTI recruiting and onboarding team members in on a monthly basis. And even in the investments that have come into the city, through Enterprise Ireland particularly, we have 9 co-working / innovation spaces around the city that got funding in recent weeks from Enterprise Ireland. Earlier this year, another 5 got 10 million in funding. And, you know, you aggregate that with what's happening with the BF Food Innovator Campus, the GMIT iHub, Portershed and Galway City Innovations District's new developments in town with 2 buildings, and indeed Galway's Technology Centre with Academy West. There's a lot of energy going in to try and make sure that we grow as a city. You know, the population is promised to double over the next 20 years. There's a lot that needs to be done to progress
there is, yeah.
On the infrastructure side, but to be fair, there's a lot of good people making positive steps in the right direction. I think we're all getting an understanding of where the challenges are and how we can help. But I think the legacy of all these investments is going to be phenomenal, because we're over doubling the capacity, if not tripling in certain sectors, for the creative minds of the future and the bright people who have ideas and how they want to develop them. We're building more and more that infrastructure around getting access to funding, having mentors. And I think actually, as a result of the good work that's happened in Galway in the last few years, at a national level, our brand is well recognised at government level in terms of delivering. So it's certainly been a year of, how would I put it, mixed messages. There have been many struggles along the way, and certainly we won't take from that. But there's been a lot of resilience and a lot of really good news.
There has been, but I mean, you mentioned the length of time that you're there, but once you came in, you started the strategy very, very quickly, and the previous president and yourself worked on it. So by the time the 12th of March came and then we knew those lockdowns coming left, right and centre at that stage, not for as long as we thought, a lot of the work was done, but now the work continues. And it's the one work that hasn't stopped with COVID.
It's the one work that hasn't stopped with COVID, and I think now more than ever we stand still at our peril, because what you're finding, not just in Ireland but across Europe, is cities and locations have become sharper, smarter. Decisions that in the past would take months and years are being made nearly within a week or two. And I think for us as a location, we had no choice but to try and ramp up activity. And there's areas we did well, and without a doubt, there's areas that we didn't do as well as we should have as well. But I think the one big bit that really gives the whole piece, and I know it nearly sounds cliched, but the whole New York Curla, I think the one interesting bit about Galway as a microcity and as an innovative microcity is businesses worked together. Even competing businesses, if you look across sectors, and Keith, one of the bits that I remember being wary when we launched the Business Recovery Forum at the beginning of April, and part of, we weren't quite sure what the objective was, but it was saying, listen, we need to do something and start having conversations. And what you had were, on some of the calls, and remember at that stage, Zoom calls, you were muting and unmuting, and there were lines dropping and going up, and people were all filtering in their own way trying to get to grips with it. But what you had in certain sectors were maybe 20 competitors all coming on the line, talking about their challenges, sharing staff, sharing resources and sharing ideas. And I think that's something that's unique to ourselves here in Galway that you don't see in other locations. There's a trust built up and there's a willingness to work together. And I think that's a compliment to each and every person in the business community and their teams.
It certainly is. So, I know you're big into key performance indicators and all that go with it. Are you where you want to be as we leave a disaster of 2020, or will 2021 be the year of delivery?
I think a lot of good work has been done in 2020. We're going to see, even if we talk about the projects that I spoke to there, that have got Enterprise Ireland investment funding, there's a couple that we're involved in ourselves in Chamber, and you're going to see building work taking place. You're going to see sods being turned on sites. In some projects, the likes of GMIT, I hope you're going to see be launched. You'll see the likes of the BioInnovator being delivered next year. So I think the seeds for the next decades have been well sown and a lot of groundwork has happened. I think, Keith, importantly for us, and to be able to try and drive on Galway as a location, is the piece of work that we're doing and the consultation that my colleagues in Chamber Council talked to you about over the last few weeks. It's going to be a piece of public consultation, but also with key stakeholders around the city and the county and the wider region. And remember, a strong city will help drive a strong county and will feed into the wider region. So this just isn't about a particular section of the city or a particular sector in business. This is about us all together, working together. And I think if we look at what good will look like over the next 3 months, we need to come together and be systematic in our submissions around the review of the National Development Plan. That's coming up at the end of January, so that's a significant piece to hit, because we want to make sure that we as a community are agreed on what are the important projects. And then the next bit is, how do we pull a vision together for Galway for the next 30 years? Because one of the challenges in many places you have, if we look, Waterford had an announcement in recent weeks of over 100 million for the development of their key area in the city, which was huge for somewhere like Waterford, not dissimilar to Galway. If we had an announcement in the morning of 100 million, there'd be a bit of debate in terms of, well, God, where will it go and what will it go to? So I think we as a community need to come together over the next couple of weeks and months and agree what our priority projects are, so that we are well positioned to lobby government, to lobby Europe. And when that announcement comes, and it will come because we're putting the work in, we'll know, we'll be coordinated, and there'll be consensus in our messaging in terms of what it is that we want to deliver with that money. That's what's going to be important, and I think that's what the next 3 months needs to deliver from our work right across the sectors and right across the community.
Kenny Deery, thank you for joining us. Keep up the good work. Chief Executive of Galway Chamber, indeed. Thank you for joining us.